Yes, come up with doubts. Anything you want to ask? Any doubts? No? Because then I will be asking you questions. Like in class Viva. So I also joined in. There are still some people joining in. Good evening, Afsa. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so where were we? Last class. We have discussed till, I think we finished the asexual reproduction in lower organisms, right?
So we have to do spore formation and vegetative propagation.
Yes, right. We have to do spore formation and vegetative propagation today. Okay, before that, let's just quickly and briefly discuss. You people give me a brief recap of asexual reproduction in lower organisms, which is binary fission, multiple fission, budding, fragmentation, and regeneration. What we did. Okay, so let's start with Fatima. Just Fatima.
So
Fatima,
what should I explain?
binary fission. Yes.
Okay, in binary fission, the parent cell divides into two daughter cells, and the parent cell does not have its identity remained.
And what do you mean by that?
Means the parent cell is the daughter cell.
It's the parent cell, so you can say that biologically the parent cell is immortal actually because it divides to form the daughter cells.
Yes, sir.
And we call it a mode of reproduction because it is producing more copies of the organism, correct?
Yes, sir.
And technically it's a cell division, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Alia, budding.
Yes, sir. The budding is when the small bud is developed on the parent body, and the parent body gives nutrition and shelter to it until it's fully matured. In this method, the mother cell stays. It doesn't die, and
In budding, the mother cell doesn't die.
it doesn't die. I mean, the mother cell stays. It's not like in binary fission, it divides into two daughter cells. In this, the mother, like for example, the mother stays, and
Yes,
then
so
there's
the
a
generation
daughter.
one stays as generation one, right? But
Yes, yes.
and that's why it has to die because it will age and
Yes,
it will then die. So
sir.
there is a concept of biological death,
Yes,
natural death for yeast.
yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Good. And how is then a bud different from the daughter cells in fission?
Sorry, sir.
How is a bud in the process of budding different from the daughter cells in fission? So you talked about the parent. The parent in that mode becomes the daughter cell. In this mode, the parent generation is separate.
Yes,
But how is the daughter bud and the daughter cells in fission are different? How will you differentiate between these? Yes.
okay. In binary fission, the daughter cell gets the genetic materials. I don't know, sir.
Yeah. See, in binary fission, there always has to be two daughter cells produced at the same time with same amount of genetic material and everything. Okay, equally distributed. Whereas in case of buds, just 1 second, let me allow people in. There are certain people still. Okay, I think everyone is in. Yeah. Whereas in case of budding, it's not mandatory that every time there will be two daughter buds produced, and they may not be equal. So there can be multiple buds, like a chain of buds. Remember I told you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There can just be one bird. So it's not at all decided. Okay, it's very, very stochastic. It's very random. Okay, good, nice, Alia. Arpit, would you like to take fragmentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, during the process of fragmentation, sir, the parent body is broken down into several pieces, several fragments, and sir, then the each fragment, sir, then individually grows
Okay. So,
and forms a new organism.
yes, it forms a new organism. And for the mode of fragmentation, what are the characteristic features of fragmentation? As you said that the parent body divides, can it divide on itself?
No, sir, it needs an external factor.
Yes, perfect. Nice. Okay, Alvia, would you like to speak up? Can you speak? Are you there, Alvia? Alvia has not been speaking in class. I don't know. Alvia, you can write to me if you are not able to speak up in class because of some technical problems or something. We'll try to sort it out. Afsa, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So kindly tell me, how is regeneration different from fragmentation? And why it is not considered a true mode of reproduction? If you're speaking, you're not.
Regeneration is where a new pot is developed from like the body, and like in fragmentation, like the parent body is divided.
But
And then
what is the basic difference between regeneration and fragmentation? Because if in both you have to make fragments and then grow from that, how is regeneration different from fragmentation then? So I can see Fatima raising hands. Now it's a classroom feel, no? Yes, Hafsa, continue. Would you like to take Fatima's help in completing the answer? Okay, Fatima, would you like to help Hafsa in the discussion?
Sir, in regeneration, you need to have a minimum amount of tissue present, but in fragmentation, any like amount can be it can be fragmented into an individual.
Yes, you're right. But in regeneration, that property is only applied to certain organisms. Like most of the organisms have this limitation that there has to be a minimum threshold. But that is not the difference between fragmentation and regeneration. Remember, I told you about some ability kind of thing. Remember? Arpit also raised hand. Yes, Arpit. Would you like to come in and like pitch in?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Tell me. What do you want to say? Yes.
There was that question that you asked. So, true mode.
Yeah, tell me. What is your answer?
Sir, it is not considered a true mode, sir, because sir, the whole organism can't be grown back from the lost mode.
In case of Hydra and Planaria, it can be, right? I deliberately dictated you the answer. Fatima, anyone has revised and knows? Anyone who has written down the answer would like to tell me?
Answer.
What was the definition?
Yes, sir, yes.
What was the definition for regeneration?
Regeneration is the ability of growing back lost body parts by an organism or growing a new organism from the lost body part.
Exactly. So it is more like a ability. It is not a mode of reproduction. For lower organisms like Planaria and Hydra, because they show extremely good ability for regeneration, and any part of their body can regenerate back to become the whole organism. In those organisms, it can be considered as a mode of reproduction, but not for all. So it's not a true mode for reproduction, because a true mode means which is an option which any asexually reproducing organism can take. But here regeneration is an ability, And in most of the organisms, it's a limited ability. So organisms can grow back their lost body parts, but most of the time that lost body part cannot grow back the whole organism. Remember I told you, giving an example of a lizard, that a lizard can grow back its tail multiple times in its life, but the tail, this part, the lost part, it cannot grow back the whole lizard. Or even if we cut the lizard from the center, both the parts will just die. So it's not going to regenerate the head or the bottom part, correct? So that is the difference between fragmentation and regeneration. Regeneration is the ability. I also gave you the example for human. We have very limited regenerating capability in some organs, like in liver, in our nail beds, in the hair follicles. Remember? Also, the earthworm was one of the example. So you have to remember these things when you are writing answers. Okay. Okay, so today we'll start with spore formation. It's another asexual mode of reproduction. But what's brilliant about spore formation is, so anyone who knows what is spore formation to begin with? Let's start the discussion for spore formation. What is spore formation? What do you understand by spore formation? What are spores? Anyone? Any idea? Spores?
Bud-like structure.
Bud-like structure. So why don't we call it bud? It is a bud-like structure. Why we call it spore and not bud? Yes, Arpit. Any idea?
Yes, sir.
No idea. Okay. See, spore formation, is a very, very brilliantly evolved phenomena where they, right till now, there are two ways that we understand, even from our lower junior classes, we understand that one mode to reproduce is that you make gametes, okay, and then these gametes fuse to become a zygote. That is the sexual mode, remember? So we make gametes, and that those gametes fuse to make a zygote, and that zygote starts developing as an embryo and then a baby and all these things, correct? In animals, we know this. Yes or no? Say yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And what do we know about plants? We know that plants produced seeds. Most of the fruiting plants produce seeds. We put that seed in the soil and that seed germinates, right? When the environment is correct.
Yes, sir.
We know about plants that it is the seed, the most common method. About animals, we know it's making gametes and then fusing it. Spores are produced. Spores are basically a kind of seed which is a single cell. So it is unicellular. It is very simple a thing, and you can produce, plant or fungi can produce thousands and even millions of spores. These are all single celled, and they just can fall. So they are like gametes, single cell. Gametes are single cell. Seeds are not single cell. Seeds are a big structure. So they are like gametes, but they do not work by fusion. They can just behave like seeds. So they are a single cell seed. You understand? Easy to make, no complexity of fusing or producing a zygote or anything. And the best part is, spores can ensure reproduction even when the environment is not favorable. So normally we have studied that reproduction in general is a very energy consuming process, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right? So if it is an energy consuming process, you would not like to reproduce if there is scarcity of resources or nutrition, or if the condition is unfavorable, right? You would not like to lose so much of energy. But if this happens and the plant has to ensure survival, so what it will do is, if it can reproduce through spore formation, it will produce millions of spores contained in a spore sac, and when it will burst, and when the favorable conditions will come again, it will germinate into thousands of new different plants and fungi. So let's write something about it first. Write down spore formation.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please, Arpit.
Sir, you told earlier that it does not require favorable conditions.
It does not require favorable conditions to be formed, but to grow back again. See, it's logical, no? A plant is just ensuring it cannot make seeds during unfavorable conditions because it's a very, very energy consuming process. It's sexual reproduction. It requires pollination, fertilization, about which we will study later after this in sexual mode. But spore formation can happen. So it gets stored in a bag-like structure, and it can burst open, and all these spores either will be in the air. We will discuss all these things, okay? Or can fall on the ground in the soil, and it will stay inactive till there is unfavorable condition, because it does not make sense for a new plant or a new fungi to emerge when the environment is already unfavorable. But you know that whenever favorable condition will come, you already have your insurance in place. Things will grow. So it is formed in unfavorable conditions, but of course a new plant or a new fungi will grow when the condition will be favorable. Otherwise it will just grow in an unfavorable condition and will again die, right?
Yes, sir.
Arpit? Yes. So write down a few things about spore formation. Spore formation mainly occurs in non-flowering plants and fungi. In non-flowering, so it does not happen in angiosperms. Angiosperms are flowering plants. In non-flowering plants and fungi. Okay, so these are the two organisms that mainly depend on spore formation. Now it does not happen in flowering plants because flowering plants already have a good mechanism in place, which is to make seeds through sexual reproduction, correct? And as I told you, spores just behave like seeds, but they are unicellular like gametes. Okay, write down next point. Thousands of spores can be produced by an organism. Thousands of spores can be produced by an organism without the need of without needing any male or female reproductive organs. Good, no? Isn't it beneficial? So you do not need specific organs that you need to make gametes, right? So it is less energy consuming than making gametes, and it is also less complex in process, and it's very straightforward like a seed. Yes or no? Is it good or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Without needing male or female reproductive organs. Therefore, organisms do not waste energy. Therefore, organisms do not waste energy like in gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis?
Production of sperm or ovum.
Yes, production of gametes. So organisms do not waste energy like in gametogenesis. There is lots of energy waste in gametogenesis. Okay. Mostly, majority of, so you can write mostly spores are haploid. Now you all know what is haploid and diploid. What is haploid? Remember haploid we discussed above. Ploidy means copy of genome. Haploidy means a single copy of genome is present. Diploidy means two copies of the genome is present, right? So spores are haploid, just like gametes. So a question comes in board exams. Write down this question. What are the differences and similarities between gametes and spores? Everyone is writing down this question.
Yes, sir.
What are the differences and similarities between gametes and spores? This came in 2019 the last time in CBSE. Yes. Also, it can be asked in entrance like this, that which of the following point spores and gametes differ in, and there will be 4 points. So that one point where they differ or they are similar in, and there will be 4 options, and one option will be where they are similar. You understand? So how are they same and how are they different? Quickly, just to summarize.
They both are haploid.
Perfect. So what are other similarities? Similarities is they both are haploid most of the time, mostly like gametes.
Both occur meiosis.
Both occur through meiosis. Perfect. Keep writing. Both are haploid, both occur through meiosis. Third thing is both are unicellular, single cell, right? And what is the difference? Spores are less energy consuming. Sporogenesis is less energy consuming than gametogenesis. Second thing, spores do not require fusion like gametes. They can just grow like seeds under favorable conditions. Correct?
So what was the first point in differences?
In differences.
Sir, can you repeat again, sir? It went very fast.
Okay, sorry. So what do you want me to repeat? The difference.
Sir, the answer.
Yes. So the similarity you have written. Similarity.
Yes, sir.
Sir, only sir, both are unicellular. Sir.
Both are
Unicellular.
unicellular is the first similarity. What are other similarities, Fatima?
Both of them occur through meiosis.
Yes, both are produced. They cannot occur. Events occur. Things are produced.
Yeah.
Birthday,
And both of them are haploid.
yes, both of them are haploid. Both of them are produced through meiosis. Both of them are unicellular. Are the 3 similarities between spores and sperms, or spores and gametes. Is it clear, Arpit and everyone?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now the differences. The first difference is sporogenesis, which means the formation of spores is less energy consuming than gametogenesis. So you can do one thing, make a column. On one side, write similarities with gametes. And on the other side, write differences with gametes. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Just to summarize for you, similarities were both are haploid, produced through meiosis, and
Both are unicellular.
unicellular. Differences are sporogenesis
Needs more energy.
needs less energy,
Yeah, less energy.
is less energy consuming. If it needs more energy, then what is the point of making spores? Then you can very well make gametes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And less energy consuming.
No fusion.
Yes. Spores do not require fusion.
Sir, they do not require fusion, but can they undergo fusion?
No, they cannot undergo fusion.
Okay.
They cannot fuse. There's no compatibility of, there is no mechanism of fusing of spores. Because
Oh, okay, sir.
spore is capable of growing into a new organism itself. Now, tell me, whatever organism will grow from a spore, will it be haploid or diploid?
Haploid.
Yes. So class 11th, plant kingdom, the chapter plant kingdom, you will see that in plants there are pteridophytes, bryophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, right? Different phylums you will study. Angiosperms are the flowering plants. But if you go to bryophytes, pteridophytes, you will see there is a sporophyte, a different plant body, and a gametophyte, a different plant body. And their sporophyte produces spores. Make sense? And those spores are haploid. So please go back to class 11th textbooks and revise just this part about spores. It will come in entrances. It will not come in your 12th boards, but because you are also preparing for entrances, it's good to keep revising these things when a topic is emerging and we are already discussing it. Okay. So no fusion. Anything else? What was the other point of difference? Spore less energy consuming, do not require fusion. You can write down spores grow like seeds, right? They are just like unicellular seeds, but haploid. Seeds are not haploid, seeds are diploid. So is spore formation clear?
Yes.
Now in a fungi, what happens is basically there is a spore, we call it sporangium or spore sac like structure. So I'm taking an example of a fungi here. You all know class 11. Yes, Fatima, tell me.
Rhizopus.
Yes, you all know that fungi has a basic structure like hyphae, mycelium, right?
Yes, sir.
His root-like network is called hyphae, remember?
Yes.
And then this structure is called sporangium. Sporangium. Sporangium contains spore, so it's also called a spore sac. Spore sac or sporangium. And it contains lots and lots of spores inside, and when it desiccate or when it bursts, these spores are just in the air. They can be carried away by the air to long distances because they are very small single cells. So these are your spores. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Arpit.
Sir, what causes them to burst?
Just like there are mechanisms in place when you make spores, there is a time period in which the spores are maturing and that sac stays intact. This same similar kind of mechanism is for pollen grains also, about which I will teach you today. So after some time, when that time is done and spores must have been mature by now, this spore sac starts loosening up, and there are chemical cues, chemical signals that allow these spore sac to open and burst at the right time. Okay. It's like
Okay, sir.
there are many time based or time regulated mechanisms in plants because plants cannot do things like animals can do, right? So just like ripening of the fruit. So when a fruit ripens, it automatically falls from the tree, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just like a leaf dies, it just detaches from the tree. Now what causes it? You can say that a wind or anything, just a small push causes it. But even if you don't give any push, it will just detach from there and fall. So leaves fall, dried leaves fall, dead leaves fall. Similarly, ripened fruits fall because the mechanism is to ensure that the seed which is inside the fruit must fall on the ground so that it can grow again. Clear?
So, sir, is there any external factor causing this?
The external factor to carry away these spores is wind, of course, right? But the opening, the bursting of the spore sac is mainly internally regulated. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
In a timely manner. That it takes, let's say, 2 months for the spores to mature. So after 2 months, this will desiccate.
Okay.
Okay. Now, write down types of spores, some types that are asked in entrances that I have seen. How many of you have textbooks? I assume everyone has textbook by now, NCERT textbook, correct?
No, sir.
Yes.
No?
Yes, sir.
Why not?
The school did not. The school did not provide it.
Okay. So when will you be getting your textbooks? So your
It
school
will
is,
take time.
your school is not opened yet, is it?
No, it's open, but still they didn't provide the textbooks.
Are they taking your biology classes?
Yeah,
Yeah, but just like the teacher is teaching you, is it offline or online?
offline.
In a class, you are going to classroom. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so try to get the book as early, because reading, make a habit of reading your NCERT. So many a times I tell you things which are in NCERT and also which are not in NCERT, because we have to cover both for boards and for entrances, and also for you to, if you want to pursue, because everyone here does not strictly wants to become a doctor. Someone can also go in research or biotechnology or to be a veterinary. So you need to know a lot more than NCERT. Okay. And to do that, we discuss concepts. So keep writing these. But please, first hurdle is your school exam. So for that, do read NCERT. Whatever topics we cover in class, go and read it in the book. It will not be more than 1 or 2 pages in the NCERT, correct? And all these topics are just small paragraphs in NCERT. We discuss a lot more than that, but I think you can do that, right? I am just trusting all of you that you are going back and reading NCERT. So in your NCERT, there is example of Clamidomonas given. Clamidomonas is an organism which behaves both like a plant and an animal. Because it has chlorophyll, it's green, so it can photosynthesize, but it can also move. It can move like an amoeba or a bacteria, and can also find other smaller organisms and feed on it. So in the daytime, it behaves more like a plant because it has chlorophyll. In the night time, it predates. Predation is not done by plants most of the time, except for carnivorous plants. You know about carnivorous plants? Sundew, Venus flytrap. No?
Yes.
Yes? Anyone who does not know about carnivorous plants? Plants that kills other animals and organisms and for nutrition. Write it down, make a star. This is your in-class assignment for today. You have to go back before you come tomorrow, and you have to look at carnivorous plants. Some examples, and how can a plant predate an animal. So there are plants evolved that can kill animals. Will you do this, all of you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
We will discuss it tomorrow. Now about spores, write down the first types of spores is called zoospores. First type I'll be teaching about is zoospores. This is what the example in NCERT is given for Clamidomonas. Clamidomonas produce zoospores. Now, you know, what does the word zoo means? Again, terminology, please. Quick.
Animals.
Animals.
Yes, zoology means?
Study of
Study
animals.
of animals.
So the spores which behave like animals are called zoospores. And what do I mean by behaving like animals? What is the one characteristic that animals have and plants do not have?
Movement, locomotion.
Motility. Yes, locomotion. So write down, zoospores are motile. Zoospores are motile spores. They can move as they have flagella. Now, if they have flagella, where can they move? Of course, in water, right? Right? In water.
Yes, sir.
So aquatic organisms or unicellular organisms or organisms which live in or around water produces zoospores, which are motile and they have a flagella. So these spores will look a single cell with a flagella like this. So it can just move like a sperm can move, right? So they are motile. So they are motile. They have a structure called flagella. And next point, they lack a cell wall. So there are some characteristics which just make sense. You don't have to mug it up. So if it is a zoospore, zoo means animal, so it should be moving. So it is motile. And to move, it should have some structure which is called flagella, a tail-like structure which can help it in movement, like in sperm. And it does not have a cell wall, right now. It does not have a proper cell wall. Now, why do you think it does not have a proper cell wall? What is cell wall for? Logic. Simple logic.
Protection of the cell.
Protection, right? Cool. Now, Fatima, the question is for you. You have to answer it for the whole group. If you have to protect yourself from a danger, there are two ways to protect yourself. What are those ways?
Covering,
Sorry, what?
covering or hiding.
Which is the same thing, no? You are covering, you are hiding.
Yeah.
Yes. So what is the other way where you don't want to hide? What you should do?
Run away.
Exactly. So there are two ways to protect yourself in nature. Either get protection through a shield, get covered, or run away. So if a spore is motile, does it need a cell wall to protect itself?
No.
It can just run away, right? Move away
Yeah.
from dangers. That's why animal cells do not have a cell wall, but plant cells have a cell wall, correct? Because plants cannot move, run away. So to protect their cells, they need a very stiff boundary. Apart from cell membrane is very soft. Cell wall is very rigid. So to protect itself, they have cell wall. But animals can just move away from danger, so their cells lack cell wall. Does it make sense, people?
Very
Yes, sir.
much.
Exactly. So simple. Zoospores are animal-like. They are motile. They have a flagella, so they lack a cell wall. They do not need it for protection. They can move away from danger. Write down examples. Clamidomonas. Clamidomonas. Now, Clamidomonas is an algae. An algae comes under which kingdom? What
Bryophytes.
Kingdom? There are only 5 kingdoms. Bryophyte is not a kingdom.
Fungi.
No. Yes, fungi is a kingdom, but algae.
Protista.
No. Anything else left?
No.
Are you going to say?
Monera.
Oh my goodness. Algae is a plant. It comes under plant kingdom. Algae are the most simplest form of plants. Okay. Write it down. In front of algae, write down the simplest plants. Algae are simplest plants. You will find many green algae developing around water bodies. Haven't you seen that? We call it kai. Like in regional languages, I'm from North India. We call it kai. Kai lag gaya. Something like that.
Yeah, sir.
Yes. That green slippery thing near water
Yes.
bodies is sometimes algae. You will see many water bodies look in their water looks green. That's because of lots of algal bloom, lots of algae growing in that water body. So Clamidomonas is an algae. It's a simple plant which produces zoospores. Okay.
Sir, is it like slightly black in color?
Clamidomonas, if does not have chlorophyll, it can be slightly brownish or blackish that you are saying in color. But Clamidomonas have both things. So write something about Clamidomonas also. This is how it looks. If you will see your NCRT, they will be making a Clamidomonas like this, and it will be having a flagella. This is just a rough structure, and you will see green chlorophyll present in it, because of which Clamidomonas looks green. So it looks like a plant, but the question is, if it has chlorophyll, it can just photosynthesize. No need to go around to find food. Then why does it have a flagella? Because it also sometimes behave like an animal. So it's at the borderline of a plant and an animal, but because it has chlorophyll, we cannot put it in animal because no animal has chlorophyll, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why it's in kingdom Plantae and as an algae. Okay, and it produces zoospores. Next, another example is albugo. Yes, albugo is one example. Albugo is a fungi, a lower fungi. As I told you, non-flowering plants and fungi produces spores. So one example from each. Remember Clamidomonas and albugo. Please find 2 or 3 more examples of this as your in-class assignment. Some common which you can find from books. Now the second type of spores, completely opposite to this. These are zoospores. The second one are called Planospores. Planospores. Now Planospores are non-motile. Okay. So if they are non-motile, they will not have flagella, correct? Yes.
Yes.
So write down they are non-motile and they are generated from a vegetative cell. A vegetative cell. Now, do you think Planospores will have a cell wall? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Why? Because they are
Sir,
non-motile.
because yes.
Just 1 second. Someone who joined in. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Arpit. Please.
Sir, the diagram which is given in the NCRT, sir, of the Clamidomonas. Sir, in that, sir, the zoospore are having something structure like a cell wall. Sir, what is it?
The zoospores are having some thin
Some
structure.
structure like a cell wall, sir, a double membranous structure like a cell wall.
Yes. So Clamidomonas do, some species do have cell wall. So they have just made a general structure of it, but zoospores mostly do not have a cell wall. They do not need a cell wall. Okay.
So can you explain Planospores again?
Yes, I'm doing it. This is, you have logged in from a different.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Fine. Planospores. I was just talking about this before you dropped out. So planospores are non-motile, opposite to zoospores. They are non-motile. They are generated from a vegetative cell, and because they are non-motile, they need to have a cell wall. So they have a cell wall present. Okay. Actually, Arpit, because you asked this question, it's a very, if you will go to certain books and even on internet, and this is a true thing, you know, Clamidomonas are also capable of producing planospores. Okay. So if a Clamidomonas is producing a planospore, it will have a cell wall. Okay. But
Okay,
in
sir.
that case, it may or may not have a flagella. Okay. But if it is producing a zoospore, it will have a flagella and it will not have a cell wall. So probably because NCRT just wanted to give an example, they showed you both the things. But we mostly study Clamidomonas for zoospores, and in planospores, write down the examples are Vaucaria is one example. Vaucaria. Vauchari. Vaucaria. Now, I think Vaucaria is a lower algae itself. Now, can someone please confirm this for me? Vaucaria is a lower algae or a lower fungi. Vaucaria is an algae as far as I know. The next example is Hematococcus. This also must be an algae. Hematococcus. So this is a algae. Vaucaria. Hematococcus, kindly please
So
confirm.
algae, Workaria is an algae, lower algae.
Yes, right. It's an algae. And
I
what is
just
Hematococcus? It should also be an algae, if I'm not wrong. But some books have written Hematococcus.
Sir, it's an algae too.
Algae, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you will see in some notes or books Hematococcus written as a lower fungi. That's not true. Okay. Algae. Perfect. So these are examples. Please find, because both are algae examples, please find a lower fungi or a fungi that produces a Planospores. Will you do that? You will also find sometimes Clamidomonas also say like written under Planospores. That Clamidomonas also can produce Planospores.
So what did you write after non-motile for Planospores? Generated.
From a vegetative cell.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yes, a vegetative cell is a cell which I'll be discussing about those kind of cells in plants in sexual reproduction. Okay. Is this clear? Spore formation is clear?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So till here, mostly all the types of asexual reproduction that happens in lower organisms is covered. Okay. Now let's go to higher organisms. And in higher organisms,
Sir, the Planospores, can you explain again? Because like I just got logged out. So
yes, no problem, no issues. See, zoospores is clear, right? Motile,
yeah, yes.
like they have a flagella so that they can move, and because they have a flagella, they do not need a cell wall. So most of the times they lack a cell wall. And the examples are Clamidomonas and Albumin. Planospores are just opposite of zoospores in the spore forming community. They are non-motile, so they cannot move from one place to another on their own. They need to be carried by something. And the reason that they are non-motile, they cannot have flagella, is because they are generated from a vegetative cell. A vegetative cell is different from a generative cell. So there are two types of cell which are present also in pollen grains. I'm not sure if you have studied pollen grain by now in detail. So pollen grain have two type of male nucleus in it. Have you studied double fertilization? No, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Like you
In
might have
previous classes.
Yes, you might have studied double fertilization in brief, that there are two fertilizations that happen in a plant at the same time. One fertilization is between the male sperm nucleus and the egg cell. That is called between egg. Yes, that is called between the egg cell and the generative nucleus. And there is another vegetative nucleus. So this kind of spores are formed from a vegetative cell. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And because they are non-motile, most of the times a cell wall is present in them for
Protection.
Makes sense, right?
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so now let's come to higher organisms, and the mode of asexual reproduction in higher organisms is called vegetative propagation, and it happens in plants. Vegetative propagation. Plants can undergo vegetative propagation. Now, before telling you about vegetative propagation, let me tell you, it's nothing but just the concepts of fragmentation and regeneration applied on higher organisms. So for this to understand this properly, you just have to understand fragmentation and regeneration. So fragmentation is making fragments of something, correct? And regeneration is growing from a small part a whole new organism, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? And both of these concepts together, convoluted as one, happens in vegetative propagation. Now, vegetative propagation, write down, let's first define it. Vegetative propagation is a mode of asexual reproduction. Vegetative propagation is a mode of asexual reproduction in higher plants in higher plants that occurs through its leaves, its leaves, stem and roots. So these are the three structures through which vegetative propagation happens. Okay, there will never be vegetative propagation happening through flowers or fruits, because these are sexually reproductive structures. Is it clear, people? No doubt, right?
No doubt.
Yes. Now, also write down in this process, basically, fragmentation and regeneration is taking place. In this process, basically, fragmentation and regeneration is taking place in specific vegetative parts of plants. Okay,
Sir, in specific?
vegetative parts of plant. Again, the word vegetative is because they are not generative. So roots, stems and leaves are vegetative parts. Flowers and fruits are generative parts. Is it clear, everyone? Is this getting clear?
Yes.
What is generative, what is vegetative? So when I said that planospores are produced from vegetative cells, is it also clear that it's not produced from the generative part, it's produced from the vegetative part? So Fatima, tell me, what did you write? Fragmentation and
Regeneration is taking place in specific vegetative parts of plants.
yes. What are these specific parts?
Root, stems, and leaves.
Yes. Specific vegetative parts. Clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now it's of two types. The one type is very clearly discussed in NCERT, but the other type is not. So first is natural. You know, vegetative propagation also happens naturally in many plants, and other is artificial, which humans have developed. Now, natural mode means no human interference is required. So you can write down types of vegetative propagation. First is natural vegetative propagation. Types of vegetative propagation. First is natural. In natural, it's basically which is naturally happening through either leaves, stems, roots. Okay. So in natural comes the first thing through leaves. I am first discussing natural. So write down through leaves. You can just write one line: leaves of few plants, detaches from the plant, from the parent plant. Leaves of few plants detaches from the parent plant and can develop into a new plant when put in soil. And can develop into a new plant when put in soil. Is it clear? The example is bryophyllum. So the leaves of bryophyllum actually have small rudimentary plant-like structures which form plant buds. Is it clear? At the notches, at the edges of the leaf, you will see that there is a small rudimentary plant-like structure forming. at the corners. So when this leaf gets detached from the plant and falls in the soil, these small plantlets starts growing into a new plant. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So this is just a vegetative mode of propagation. No sexual activities involved, no seed formation, no pollination, nothing is involved. Just one vegetative part of a plant is propagating the plant species further. Okay. Also an example is aloe vera. All of you have seen aloe vera, right?
Yes, sir.
The pulpy part of the aloe vera is actually a modified leaf. You know that? It's a swollen leaf. It's a modified leaf where all that aloe vera gel is present. So if you just detach that whole part from the plant and put it in a separate pot, it will start growing root and all, and it will develop into a new aloe vera plant. Anyone has done this?
My father must have.
Yes, you ask your father, okay?
Yeah.
It's always good to see these things happening, because what you study in books, it's being done somewhere, either in kitchen or in the terrace garden or somewhere in the field. Someone is doing it. It's just that you are not paying attention enough to understand that what your father is actually doing is vegetative propagation of aloe vera. So what I'm talking about is, if you see aloe vera, you will see that leaves like this are present in aloe vera, right? Attached
Yes.
to something. So there are big leaves like this filled with gel inside and small thorn like structures, right? So if you just take one leaf completely and put it in a soil, it will start germinating roots and grow as a new plant. Next is through stem.
Sir,
Yes, Arpit.
sir, only the pulpy part will be grown.
So the leaf, if I draw one part, it has a pointy edge, and at the other side you will see that the aloe vera leaf gets very thin and is attached to this. Here it's attached to the stem, right? Have you seen aloe vera leaf? A whole leaf.
Yes.
So if you cut from here and put it in the soil, it may not grow. It will just dry and die. So you have to just take out the whole leaf without damaging it. So from here, you will see that new roots will start developing and new stem will start developing and new leaves will also start developing. Is it clear? So this
Yes, sir.
end has to be there. Clear? Perfect. Fatima, you can confirm this with your father. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Write down through stem. Naturally, it can also happen through stem. Now, for naturally it to happen through stem, a plant can never detach its stem, right? Can it?
No, sir.
We can do, when we do it, we call it grafting, and that is an artificial mode. So cutting, layering, grafting, you must have read all this in junior classes, right? Cutting, grafting, layering in vegetative propagation, remember? These are all artificial
Yes.
modes because we are doing it. But naturally a plant just cannot cut its stem and put it in soil. So what do you think? If it is propagating naturally through stem, what can happen logically? If it cannot cut its own stem, what it can do? Yes,
The
Fatima.
stem can just break through the winds.
But then you have to depend on winds, and winds strong enough to break the stem. Plants will not make fragile stems, right? Stems are like their structure which keep them erect.
Yeah.
So why will they make? Yes, Arpit.
Sir, animals can break it.
When plants were evolving, they did not know that animals are going to be my companions on earth. They later on realized that yes, there are animals which can help me in pollination. So they started attracting insects. But they cannot just depend for vegetative propagation on animals. If someday some animal will come and break my stem so that I can develop into two. Simply, what can it do? What a plant can voluntarily do with its stem? Simple. The answer is very simple. How does a stem grow normally? Vertical, right? To the ground.
Yeah.
Sir, it bends downwards to the ground.
Forget about bending also. What if it starts making an additional stem horizontal, just like budding process, and that stem is just running horizontally to cover area, and after one point of time at a node another plant stem just evolve from it. This is what a plant can do, like voluntarily. Make sense? That's called runner stems. So runner stems are like, this is a stem of a small plant, this is the ground, and these are roots. Okay, so from this part just very close to a ground there will be another stem. Now it is not a root, it is a stem running. That's why we call it runner stem. And it goes to some distance where there is another node, just like this node, and from this node another stems grows up and another root system forms and a new plant is formed. Is it clear, everyone? So this part in between is called a runner stem because it's just running around and covering area and propagating the plant vegetatively. Make sense? Simple logic.
Yes, sir.
Nothing to remember. They say that whatever you can think of in biology, biology can make it happen, because biology is an intelligent field altogether. Every field of science is intelligent. Molecules are very intelligent. So the way molecules, now when I say intelligent, do not think intelligence from a perspective of a human. You know, we are intelligent because we can solve a Rubik's cube. No, not that kind of intelligence. A system which is brilliant. Okay. So when atoms collide and make molecules, when molecules do these chemical reactions on their own, either taking in heat or giving out heat, endothermic, exothermic, we think like, wow, fascinating, no?
Yeah.
Yes. Similarly is biology. Okay, so write down through stem. Runner stems grow horizontally above the ground. And new plant buds. Runner stems grow horizontally to the ground and new plant buds are formed. And new plant buds are formed at the nodes. At the nodes of the runners. So this part is one node. This part is another node. And whatever is in between this runner is called
Runner stem.
Yeah, they are stem, but it's called internode. Just like one school, two school, and whatever competition is happening between the schools are called inter-school competitions. Remember?
Yeah.
If a competition is happening inside the school between the classes, what can we call it? Intra-school or inter-house, inter-class, right? Intra-school or inter-house. If in some schools there are houses in which students are segregated. Are these things not there now or what?
It is there.
It is there, no? It was there when I was there, so it has to be there now. So people are there competing between the houses in the same school. Sometimes it's inter-school where other students from other schools come and compete. Similarly, so the word inter and intra, it will come a lot of times in science, both in chemistry, in biology and physics. So if I say intra-species, what does it mean? This activity is intra-species. What does it mean?
Occurring between two various species.
Sorry?
They're occurring between various species.
No, I mean intra-species.
Activity between the species.
Activity between two individuals of the same species. Intra-species. Write down in your terminology section. The word intra means within. And the word inter means between. Intra-species, within the species. Now within the species, what are there? In different individuals. So between the individuals and within the species is intra-species. Interspecies is between two species. You understood within and between the difference? The whole question can change and your answer can change if you cannot understand the question. So the question in NEET, one of the question was, which of the following is a intraspecific activity? Specific is made for species. Intraspecies activity. Metabolism, reproduction, growth, or consciousness? Tell me. Which activity is intraspecies?
Sir, can you repeat the options?
Which of the following activities intraspecies? Reproduction, growth, metabolism, let's say, or any other thing? All of the above.
Growth.
Reproduction. Reproduction can only happen naturally between the members of the same species. This is how you define a species. A species is defined as a group of organisms which are capable of reproducing among themselves and produce a fertile offspring. Remember the definition of species, class 11th?
Sir, but a growth can also happen within a species.
Sorry, what?
Sir, but growth can also occur within the species.
Growth can also happen between species, no? All species can grow together. If there are 10 species in a jungle, all 10 can grow together. Correct?
Yes, sir.
But all 10 species cannot reproduce together.
Yes, sir.
It can only happen between the members of the same species, within the species. You understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Clear to everyone? Fatima, Alia, Albia,
Yes, sir.
Afsa, Fatima, Munir. These are important things. I hope you are understanding. And please discuss and ask if something is confusing, okay? So intra and inter, write down in your terminology section. So through stem is clear, write down. Next, through roots. Through roots. Now what can happen through roots logically? Roots can get modified. Like in many plant species, the roots gets modified as tubers. Write down. Modified roots known as tubers. Modified roots known as tubers are capable of giving rise to new plants. Are capable of giving rise to new plants. And what are tubers? These are swollen roots. Write down. Tubers are swollen roots. Now, why are they swollen? Because they can store food. Sweet potato is an example. Sweet potato is actually a root that you are eating. It's swollen, it's modified, and it can store food. And if you see how a sweet potato is grown, you can just cut sweet potato in different parts and put it in the soil. It will give rise to a new plant. You know that?
Yes, sir.
What is potato? Is potato also a root?
Stem.
Yes, potato is a stem, but sweet potato is a root. Write it down. So it's a modified tuber of a stem. It's not a tuber of the root. Potato is the tuber of a stem. It is also a swollen stem, which is underground, which is capable of storing food. And if you cut, if anyone has seen very old potatoes in the house, you will see that during like favorable, like monsoon or just before the spring, these potatoes start developing some bud-like structures on it.
Yes, sir.
If you just cut that potato in two parts, or take out that bud and put it in soil, it will grow into a new plant. That's called vegetatively propagating through the stem or through roots. So through roots, it happens through tubers. Write down. You can buds are formed at the base of the stem. So these buds, which are present, which develop as tubers, buds are formed at the base of the stem. So if it is forming at the base of the stem, it is a root, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Here you can give examples like sweet potato, potato, etc.
Sir, potato is for stem, right?
Stem tuber, yes. So through leaves, roots, stem. One more thing is, which I think I should tell you because they don't ask it in boards, but in entrances it's asked separately, is through bulbs. There is one another different structure called bulb. Now, what is a bulb? A bulb is a underground stem on which leaves are produced, and these leaves are modified to store food. Examples are garlic and onion. So the part of onion that you eat, you have seen onion? So if you take a very raw onion, the green, so it has green leaves like this, right? You will see that it has a very small whitish bud at the tip of which is some root-like structure. This is how a very raw onion, young onion looks like, right?
Yes, sir.
When it develops, so we cut it from here, and what we sell in market, what we buy from market is a big onion, which can be either reddish or whitish in color, but it looks like this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is this part that we eat? This part? It's actually leaves. These are modified leaves. That's why you can just keep unwrapping the onion. It's layer by layer the same thing. Correct? How many of you have peeled onions?
Yeah, I have.
You have? So if you keep taking layer by layer onion, you will see that everything is just a leaf, right?
Yes, sir.
And in the very end, inside the center, you will find a bulb-like structure like this. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is bulb, which is present on the stem. Now this disc-like structure, the part that we chop and remove, so this reduced disc-like structure is called the stem. So in onions, this is also a question for entrances, there is a reduced discoid stem. It's a modified stem. So this is leaf, everything above is leaf. So you can think, where is the stem in onion? So this is the stem, this disc-like structure. And everything that comes from it is, what is it? What is this?
Roots.
Yes. And inside is a bulb. Same happens for garlic. If you see a garlic, in the very center, there is a bud-like structure, which in a ripened garlic is like a stick. This is the discoid stem, and around it you will see garlics in layers, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So these garlics are actually modified leaves which can store food. And it's in the center is a bulb, and this is the discoid, just like onion, and then there are roots. Correct? This is how a garlic looks. Is it clear, everyone? This is also a mode of natural vegetative propagation. Write down. Bulbs have an underground stem. To which leaves are attached. These leaves are capable of storing food. And in the center of the bulb, a bud is present. In some books, you will also find bulbs written as bulbils. The same thing, okay? You call it bulbil or call it bulb, it's the same thing, okay? No confusion? Yes or no? clear? Am I audible? Yes. Now in the center there's a bird written. Everyone written this?
Yes, sir.
Now this center bird can be of two types. One can be apical bird and a lateral bird. So write down. The central bird is of two types. There are two birds present. Apical bird, and the word apical means which is towards the shoot. Okay. But this apical bird gives rise to only two structures called leaves and flowers. This was asked in NEET, medical entrance. The apical bird of the bulb gives rise to, so leaves and flowers. You have to choose from the two. If both are in the options, then it will be both A and B. There will be another option called like that. Is it clear? Suppose the question is the apical bird of the bulbs in an onion gives rise to which structure? Options are leaves, flowers. C option is both A and B, and D is none. Which will you choose?
Leaves.
No, C, both A and B, leaves and flowers. Is it clear, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, so this is where it creates difference. 1 mark. You will think that yes, leaves are right, but flowers are also right. So you have to also look for if there is an option which is incorporating both. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
And the second thing is lateral bird. Lateral bird gives rise to stem, branch, in general the shoot. Okay. Roots are not produced from these birds because roots are already present below the stem in a bulb. Is it clear, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We do not need to produce roots from the bulb structure. We need to produce, leaves are already there. These leaves are storing food. So we need to produce more leaves and more flowers, or we need to produce stem and branches. So both are done through apical and lateral bird. So these details are only important for entrances. Just write it down and understand it. Is there any confusion, any issue? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So I'm giving you one homework for today. The natural mode was not discussed properly in NCERT, but the artificial mode is, there are 3 things that you have to study in artificial mode, and that you will go and do on your own today. And tomorrow I will finish artificial, tissue culture, and I will start with sexual reproduction. So in artificial mode, you have to learn cutting. Cutting is nothing but simply what was it's simple fragmentation. You cut a part of a plant and put it in soil. Any part, if it is a branch or a stem or a leaf, it just needs to be cut and put it in soil artificially with human interference. Okay, did I give the definition for natural vegetative propagation? It's simple. In one line, you can write the vegetative propagation that happens naturally without the interference of humans. Okay. The vegetative propagation that happens naturally without the interference of humans. In artificial, the vegetative propagation carried out by humans. It involves cutting. Just cut any part, put it in soil. That's cutting. Example is rose. So you will study this from NCERT. Second is grafting, and most important thing is examples. So I need examples are asked. In entrances, they will always ask examples for this part. No higher concepts. Concepts can also only come for the natural part, the bird and all these. which I discussed. Grafting is again fragmentation, but not putting it in the soil. So cut any part of the plant, but put it on another plant. That's called grafting, just like skin grafting that we do for humans. Have you heard of plastic surgery, a term called plastic surgery?
Yes, sir.
What is plastic surgery, Fatima? You put plastic on face?
No, sir.
And why do we call it plastic surgery? We take skin from somewhere else in the body, like your legs, thigh region, or somewhere else where skin is there. And suppose someone suffered an accident, a damage, or a burn, so that part of the skin can be replaced either with an artificial skin or with a natural skin derived from some other sources of the body. Correct?
Sir, what about the plastic surgery which they do for just beauty?
Beautification, yeah, that's called facelifting, or you use artificial skin.
So you use artificial skin like it's necessary?
Yes, you can also
Like,
use natural skin if it is available, but mostly see if you are doing it for face, then the face skin is very sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And it's thick also, because on face there are very less muscles as compared to other parts of the body. So the skin of the face is very thick. If you see, it has lots of glands in it. So sometimes just taking a skin from other part of the body may not fit well. So for that reason, we have to go for an artificial skin. It's like a polymer, a biological polymer that acts like a skin. But if,
does it have side effects?
of course, any invasive procedure has side effects. See, if you are opening the body or doing anything to the body, it has side effects. It can, the skin which is grafted, if it is artificial, it may be rejected by the body. Okay, so it has to be non-reactive. So it should not react with our immune system. Otherwise, if something comes in our body, our immune system recognizes it as a foreign particle. It shows reaction against it. That is called allergy. Many people have allergy from dust, pollen grains, some specific kind of food material. So that can also happen. Yes, what, Fatima?
I was saying yes.
Yes. So that can be one side effect. Other could be it may not function as well as your natural skin, so you have to take care of it a lot. Correct?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because it's already a replaced thing, so you have to take care of it. It's not as robust and as what do we say? What is a good word?
Also, sir, like what about when you have too much fat and you try to remove that?
That's called liposuction. Yes, that's called liposuction, where you just open that part of the body where lots of fat is there and take out fat. That also has many side effects, because body knows, everyone's body, whatever amount of fat you have in your body is aware of it, because your body made that fat and stored it there. Correct? So your metabolism knows about your stored reserve energy amounts. One day you just did a surgery and took all that fat away, so you will find difficulty in few weeks or first few months in your metabolism, because your body will feel different. It's like the fat was right there, where did it go? Now what should I do? Should I again start making more fat and start depositing or not? So this is what the metabolism goes under, the dilemma of.
So because of this, is it possible that you can become more fat?
You do not become more fat, but after a fat removal surgery, you have to make very active changes in your routine so that more fat does not gets deposited there, because you remove those tissues. So the fat tissues are removed. So you have to cut fat from your diet. You have to increase exercises, and you have to drink lots of good metabolic things. You understand?
Yeah.
You just cannot be obese, then one day take out all the fat, then again prepare to become obese, and then do again after a couple of years. That is not how it works. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So grafting is cutting and putting it on someone else, some other plant's body. Third is layering. Layering is just artificial way of runners and tubers. How? Just read about it and come prepared in the next class. Any doubts, anyone? Because this is time. You must be having another class, so I have to wind it up here. Any doubts? Fatima, Arpit, Alvia, Alia, Fatima, Munir?
No, sir.
No? Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes, yes, please.
sir. Which book would you like to recommend for the 12th class?
Which what?
Sir, which book?
Which book?
Yes, sir.
NCRT. You stick to NCRT. I'll take care of other things. Okay. I'll tell you if other things are required.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Then see you tomorrow. Take care, people. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.